Hi class, my name is Chelsea Nelson and this is my Family 445 Learning Teaching Interaction number 2. So we talk a lot about chapters 4 through 7 and some pages in the Gospel Handbook that we have. So I'll start off with chapter 4. The main concept of chapter 4 was the component display theory, which I thought was pretty interesting. It talked about mainly the expository and inquisitory, which expository is how you present, how you teach, what you tell, what you show, that kind of a thing. And the inquisitory is more like the questions and answers, the practices that you can do to help your learners really gain and understand the concepts and how to take it home with them. One of the things I really liked about this chapter that I can easily apply to my job, which I work with children at a learning center, is stories that teach principle. I tell stories to kids all day long, and they all have to mean something. It's supposed to teach them things in a way that it will help them understand what it is that you're trying to teach them. So if you're reading something that is above their age level, they're not going to understand what they're supposed to take from the story. And I, easily can apply this to the gospel as well. I teach the beehives and young women's, and it's the same thing. You have to tell them stories, real life stories that they can take and apply it to their lives. Like, oh, this is something that could happen to me. And so it kind of helps keep them more engaged and interested in what you have to say. In this chapter, I kind of already talked about a little bit, but how to teach them in a way that they can take the principles home with them and apply it to their lives. I thought that was crucial as well, because you need it. What's the point of teaching somebody if they're just going to go home and forget what you said and you wasted all your time? So I liked that part of the chapter. So moving on to chapter 5, I really like this chapter because it talks about engaging the audience. What comes to my mind first is, how do I keep the kids engaged at work? And how do I keep, the beehives engaged at church? And just even keeping family and friends that you're talking to engaged, it's kind of important to know how to do that. And so in this chapter, I talked a lot about the personality theories, conflict, consistency, and the fulfillment models. And I also talked about effective education. So how to build relationships with those that you are teaching. So the more that you can build a relationship with those that you're teaching and working with, the more that they're going to take out of what you're trying to teach them. It's easier to want to learn from someone when you kind of know who they are a little bit. So I thought that was kind of interesting. It's not what I necessarily thought about at first until I started reading the chapter. So I really like that, and I think it's very important. Boundaries. It talks a lot about boundaries in this chapter, in boundaries in teaching therapy and in family life education. I think that's very important. We're not quite therapists yet. This degree, we can go further on to get that, but we're not licensed to be a therapist. And so when we're teaching these family life education seminars, these workshops and things, I think it's very important that we know these boundaries, so we don't cross lines and cause problems. And, we're here to just help educate on things that we know. And it's, kind of the same with my job. I'm not a licensed therapist or a licensed teacher or anything. So I have to be careful on the things that I teach the kids and, and how I teach them, that make sure it's appropriate for where I'm at, so it's kind of the same thing. So family life education, make sure, that we know our boundaries, like not to cross the lines and things like that. It talks about emotion, how to really work your emotions into your teaching. And what came to my mind was Elder Uchtdorf, or President Uchtdorf, because he is such a great speaker. And I love listening to him and learning from him because he's able to draw in everyone's emotions, all sorts of emotions. He makes you cry, he makes you laugh. He keeps his spirit, and he never stops teaching you something. And he has his audience engaged the whole time. So I love listening to him and trying to learning, I guess, techniques from him, because he's, being able to tap into everybody's emotions, I think, is really crucial when you're trying to teach people. So moving on to chapter 6, it talks a lot about the teaching skills, and especially with family life education. It talks about, being able to lead a group discussion. So how to effectively keep the discussion going without getting behind, without moving too fast, so you have too much time left at the end. And I think if anyone who's ever taught a lesson at church is always worried, like, oh my gosh, either I don't want to be still have half an hour left to teach and have nothing else to teach them. So I think that was kind of important, is kind of learning ways like using the fishbowl and the buzz groups, and you know, how to structure enough time for groups and questions and that kind of thing. So it's like, you know, learning how to do all those things was in this chapter, you know, and, you know, to kind of promote active involvement in the teaching. Talks about the skill training, which I think is important, and, you know, to kind of be prepared, practice, and really know what you're talking about so that you don't go there and you don't know, you know, you forget what you're teaching, or you only know half of the lesson and that kind of thing. So another concept of this chapter was the family councils. I loved this. I've done it a couple times actually with my husband, and it worked really well. And you know, we don't have any kids yet, so you know, I'm sure it might be a little bit different when we have kids. Maybe it'll be a little bit harder, but I really like doing this with my husband, and I felt like it was a great way to get things solved and a great way to learn how to move forward with things and problems and stuff. So another thing I also like about this chapter talks about like homework assignments and challenges that you can help the people you're teaching really kind of, okay, go home and have a goal to really try to use those things that they had just learned. So in chapter 7, it was about working with diverse audiences. And to be honest, I had not really thought about this until this chapter. And I thought, oh, how do you not think about that? Like, if you're going to be teaching a whole bunch of different people, you need to be able to be sensitive to the different values and the different backgrounds that these people have, because what may be offensive to one person may not be offensive to somebody else. And so you kind of need to be able to teach in a way that can apply to everybody and not offend or rub somebody the wrong way just because they're from some part of the country or, you know, part of the world that maybe think or view things differently. So I like that chapter. That's kind of mainly what the whole chapter was about, is being able to work with different audiences and different people. Moving forward, so now we're on the teaching the gospel pages 11 through 15, 17 through 29, and 35 through 43. And so this one, what I got most out of this was being able to teach by the Spirit and let the Spirit teach through you. Be prepared, study your scriptures, pray, you know, do all that you can, do your part to be prepared, whether you're teaching at work, whether I'm teaching kids, or whether I'm teaching the beehives. I need to be prepared for both, you know, areas, I guess, and do my part so that the Lord and the Spirit can help me do my best to actually help the people I'm teaching really gain an understanding of what principles I'm trying to, you know, help them with, you know. And I really like the concept of letting the Spirit work through me, because there's been times where I've been teaching and I have things planned out, and then I get this impression of, don't say this, or say it this way, not this way, you know. And there was nothing wrong with the way I was going to say it before, but the Spirit knows what everyone in the audience needs. And so I just think it's really important to do those things, be prepared and be sensitive to people's needs, you know, and, you know, be cautious of what you say, make sure you don't say things that could be offensive. And I don't know, I really like these chapters, and I think they can easily be applied to our lives. Well, thanks guys. I hope you learned a lot, and I look forward to your videos.